This is Rummy's Corner. On April 17, 2004, at Madison Square Garden in New York, New York, IBF heavyweight champion Chris Byrd put his title on the line against former title challenger Andrew Golota. This wound up being a highly entertaining and engaging encounter, but going into the contest, both Byrd and Golota had a lot to prove. Golota was widely viewed as an unworthy title challenger at that stage, and Byrd was coming off of a controversial victory in his previous bout, which was his first title defense against Fres Oquendo. And despite being champion, Byrd was still largely criticized as being too small for the weight. Byrd and Golota's respective journeys leading into this one are every bit as important to this story as the fight itself. For Golota, the unlikely opportunity provided him with a chance at redemption after he had failed at the top level previously. In 1996, at the very same Madison Square Garden, then undefeated Golota squared off against former undisputed world heavyweight champion Riddick Big Daddy Bowe. At that time, despite not holding a major world title, Bowe was still widely viewed as the best heavyweight in the world. It proved to be a sensational performance from Golota, where he displayed elite-level skills against Bowe, but his inability to keep his punches above the belt resulted in a disqualification loss after repeated low blows. The infamous riot at MSG ensued almost immediately, and many wondered why Golota kept going low in a fight he was winning. His rematch against Bowe ended the exact same way, where Golota was once again disqualified for repeated low blows, marking this as one of the most bizarre rivalries in boxing history. Golota was subsequently stopped by Lennox Lewis in 95 seconds in his only previous title shot back in 1997. Golota also lost his 1999 WBC title eliminator bout against Michael Grant. And the following year, Golota's career was seemingly over after he lost against Mike Tyson in October 2000. With all of the potential he previously displayed, it seemed as if this was the final lasting image boxing fans would have of Andrew Golota, where he would be remembered as a dirty fighter who failed at the top level. Incidentally, the fight was later changed to a no contest after Tyson tested positive for marijuana. A week before Golota faced Tyson, Byrd lost his WBO belt against Vladimir Klitschko, the brother of the man he had beaten to win that belt, which at that time was not viewed as a major world title. And all the while Golota was apparently retired, Byrd was building himself back up with a string of victories that got him back into title contention. This included an impressive exhibit in The Art of the Sweet Science in August 2001, when Byrd outslicked and outmaneuvered the dangerous David Tua en route to winning a 12-round unanimous decision. That one was a title eliminator for the IBF, which would later be vacated by Lennox Lewis in September 2002. That vacancy was filled a few months later in December, when Byrd put on another outstanding performance when he thoroughly outboxed Evander Holyfield en route to another 12-round unanimous decision. That victory earned Byrd the vacant IBF championship. Then, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, Golota returned to the squared circle in August 2003 when he beat Brian Nix. The following month in September, Byrd made the aforementioned title defense against Oquendo, where Byrd won a unanimous decision, but a lot of people thought Oquendo deserved the nod. A couple of months later, Golota won another return bout against Terrence Lewis. This set the stage for the unlikely championship showdown between Byrd and Golota. Even though Golota had self-imploded in his biggest fights to date against Bowe, Lewis, Grant, and Tyson, he was still an enigma because despite not being a proven A-level talent, he had at times exhibited A-level skills. But Galata's biggest problem was always of the mental variety, where he became frustrated and unpredictable when things were tough. Byrd himself was viewed as a smooth operator, a slick boxer whose slippery style was apt to make his opponent become frustrated. But because of his struggles against similarly big heavyweights like the Klitschko brothers, where Byrd was dominated by Vladimir and losing against Vitali before he retired due to an injury, Galata represented a chance for Byrd to prove himself, and Byrd represented the same for Galata. For Galata, this was ironically his first time fighting at Madison Square Garden since the infamous riot fight against Bo 8 years earlier. And for Byrd, he was going up against his largest challenger to date during his reign. It started with both guys pawing around. Galata was looking to fire off a jab against the Southpaw champion, and Byrd was looking to parry and counter. There was a lot of nuance with their movement. Galata was looking to apply pressure, and he was countering well at times himself. Both heavyweights were starting to throw punches in short combinations. In round 2, Galata was jabbing fairly well, and he was effectively pinning Byrd against the ropes. Byrd was fighting well off the ropes, slipping and sliding and countering, but Galata was throwing in bunches, and some of them were landing and landing well. Byrd seemed to be landing a little sharper with some of those sneaky counters, but Galata was effectively banging away with a free hand in tight quarters. Late in the round, Byrd staggered an off-balance Galata, and Andrew went right back after him and tried to answer back. Galata came out in round 3 throwing straighter and sharper, but Byrd was proving to be a mighty tricky customer, and he was making Galata miss with a lot of his shots, and he was also countering and firing off some quick flurries. But Galata remained undeterred, and he continued pressing, and he was landing wherever he could on Byrd's shoulders and body, and at times he snuck in some solid rights. Galata finished the round strong, landing some nice clean shots. In round 4, Galata continued clubbing away whenever he had Byrd trapped. Both guys were effectively fighting inside this phone booth, and there was a lot of back and forth going on in this unusual tactical chess match. But Galata was the one largely dictating the close quarter fighting range, and he was often landing better in these exchanges. A lot of round 5 took place at or closer to center ring, and Galata was boxing well from range and still firing off some nice combos. But it didn't take long for things to return to familiar form, with Galata pinning Byrd in tight and the two battling it out in close quarters. Galata was the one consistently landing harder and better, with Byrd having a trickier time finding the openings needed to throw sharp counters. There was a lot of heated back and forth action happening in round 6, with Byrd and Galata each trading away in ferocious short combos, with Byrd's shots being quicker and more fluid, and Galata's more of a clubbing nature. But both guys were having some success in these exchanges. But in the later portions of the round, Galata was the one doing the better work. And late in the round, after drilling Galata hard, Byrd appeared to touch down after being hit with a body shot, but no knockdown was ruled. Both boxers continued trading away until things officially reached the halfway point. The great abundance of mini shifts in momentum continued into round 7, where Byrd and Galata continued exhibiting great technical skill combined with tremendous heart as they resumed with this thrilling game of cat and mouse. Byrd had a nice flurry late in the round, where he landed some pinpoint solid shots. But Galata maintained his focus and never lost his cool as he resumed with his workmanlike attacks. Things remained measured and strategic going into round 8. Byrd and Galata were both doing so well in the give and take of the ebb and flow that neither man was able to build any real momentum. Whenever one guy appeared to be heating up, the other would answer, and this endless cycle of competitive action stayed true to form. Galata started mixing in some nasty body work, but Byrd absorbed the shots and continued throwing pesky, well-timed punches. In round 9, it had become clear that Golota was fighting a very smart and disciplined effort, and that Byrd was hanging in there and trading with a physically larger opponent in a very physical match. There was another instance where Byrd appeared to touch down after a Golota body shot, although this time Golota was pulling him down a bit, and again no knockdown was ruled. Byrd was the one generally doing better work in the later half of the round. Golota seemed a bit rejuvenated in round 10, and he was firing off some stiff short combinations, and he was landing some bludgeoning rights as well. But as things progressed, the two boxers were once again exhibiting a damn fine display in the art of infighting, counterpunching, and countering counters, as they both continued showing a strong desire to win. By round 11, both boxers were beginning to show signs of fatigue, and the pace had slowed down somewhat, with more lulls in activity. But even with the slower activity, both boxers continued digging deep and throwing, as both continued having effective spots, with neither man still allowing the other to gain any real momentum. Golota came out aggressively for the 12th and final round, and he was unloading with mean intent, and Byrd was firing back. With a little less nuance and strategic measuring, the two began slugging away and battling for the championship on the line. There were a lot of fireworks exploding in the midst of the championship heart on display from both determined warriors. It was a terrific final round to a terrific heavyweight championship matchup. At the end of 12 rounds of very entertaining action, Judge Steve Weisfeld scored it 115 to 113 for Golota. Judge Tony Polillo scored it 115 to 113 in favor of Byrd, and Judge Melvina Lathan had it even at 114 apiece, and the official verdict was a draw. The verdict resulted in a little controversy where many people thought Golota deserved the victory. But there were also those who believed Byrd deserved it, and others still who believed a draw was the right call. This was one of the best and most entertaining heavyweight championship fights that happened around that time. And inexplicably, a rematch never happened, with both boxers going their separate ways on the very same card in their next bout, with Byrd winning a thriller against Jameel McCline, and Golota going on to lose a very controversial bout against WBA champion John Ruiz, where many observers believed Golota deserved the victory again. According to many who believed Golota deserved the nod in both fights, Andrew was viewed by some fans as the unofficial unified heavyweight champion. Personally, I am of the opinion that Golota did deserve the nod against both Byrd and Ruiz. But I am not a judge, and with the Byrd bout, it was close enough that it reasonably could have gone either way, and in that sense a draw seemed very fitting. The truth is, that fight had an awful lot of super close rounds that could have gone either way, that were a complete and total judging nightmare all around. I thought it was a tremendous effort from both Byrd and Golota, where they put on a hell of a show, and I think both guys deservedly received a lot of praise and admiration following this encounter. Indeed, I think the bout did act as redemption for both boxers. Given what each man faced going into this one, they both proved a point. For Byrd, he proved, despite being a smaller heavyweight who lacked great punching power, that he was a clever and brave boxer who could battle it out in a physical fight against a much larger and skillful opponent. And for Golota especially, even while older and past his physical peak, he displayed unprecedented maturity in this one, where he fought a very disciplined effort against an elusive and tricky boxer with a style that many found frustrating. And it was ironic that Golota, while showing the mental maturity he never displayed during his physical prime, reminded us why so many were so high on him and his tremendous potential back when he last fought at the very same Madison Square Garden in his first encounter with Riddick Bowe. It was a hell of a night for boxing fans. Both guys showcased great skills and smarts and heart, and the biggest downside in all of this is that we never got a much needed immediate rematch. Whenever a heavyweight championship contest ends in a draw, it should automatically call for an immediate rematch. And for this one, that is especially true because it was such an entertaining back and forth matchup with competitive mini shifts in the action from start to finish. And I, for one, will always look back on this one with very fond memories. Byrd and Golota sure did put on a hell of a show that night. A damn fine show. You betcha. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed and have a wonderful night. This is Rummy's Corner.